For every rock and roll success story, there are hundreds of others who've lost money from rip-offs or mismanagement. Take Richard Berry. He sold his song Louie Louie for $125. The leader of Badfinger was so depressed over missing royalties, he hanged himself. But few have fought back as long and as hard as Ronnie Spector, who'd been denied royalties and rights through marriage. When she first hit the charts in 1963, she was Ronnie Bennett of Spanish Harlem, lead singer of the Ronettes, rock and roll's ultimate girl group.
That's all I ever wanted to do was sing rock and roll. I want to sing, and I want to sing rock and roll, and I want to do it the rest of my life. And I did. I followed my dream.
Ronnie really was the archetypal first rock and roll chick. Madonna has said that she always wanted to sound like Ronnie Spector looked.
But pop journalist and author Jerry Hershey says the Ronettes' legacy was always tied to their producer, the eccentric Phil Spector. Spector was legendary for his so-called wall of sound, a thunderous musical backdrop that piled on dozens of instruments. With Ronnie's voice, he created classics like Walkin' in the Rain and Be My Baby.
I think that Be My Baby is the perfect rock record.
Bow, bow, bow. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe 2.5 minutes long, operatic in scope, and Ronnie told me she actually listened to the song being written and being written about her.
On the surface, Ronnie and Phil were the perfect rock and roll couple. In fact, in 1968, they married. But soon, the honeymoon was over.
As soon as he married Ronnie, as soon as he truly had her, he withdrew her from the public. And it wasn't so much love as imprisonment.
It was a strange and frustrating 4 years for Ronnie Spector. Her husband rarely let her leave their Beverly Hills mansion. When he did, it was with bodyguards. But why?
I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think Ronnie knows quite how and why it went so bad so quickly.
Well, he may as well have put a bullet to my head. You see those things on Mysteries and Scandals where people are just sitting in their car and lumped over. I felt dead, too. Mm-hmm. I'm not a singer anymore. I'm washed up. See, this is all in my head.
By 1972, Ronnie realized she needed to get control of her life, and that meant breaking away.
For Ronnie to break away was almost as difficult and monumental as Tina getting away from Ike Turner, because Phil was such a control freak.
Actually, my mom helped me. We had the plan, because you couldn't walk away from Phil. You know, you couldn't get out of that mansion. And so my mother and I took a walk, and he said, okay, because he figured I'm with my mother, I don't have on any shoes. When we got around the bend from the estate, we start jogging. And that's the only way that I could have gotten out, is to leave my clothing, my pocketbook, everything.
Ronnie Spector returned to New York City 10 years after she'd left it. And over the next several years, she found that many fans and friends were anxious to work with her.
I was working with Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. I was working with Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes.
Billy Joel wrote and recorded a song for her and about her, Say Goodbye to Hollywood.
Ronnie Spector looked forward. She couldn't depend on the past because she wasn't getting any money from her old hits.
Financially, I didn't get any royalties. As a matter of fact, in '66, we only got one royalty check for the three of us. It was like $14,000. Then we didn't get anything after that. I didn't care about money as long as we had, and this was the three of us, as long as we had Aquanet for hairspray and makeup money and clothes money.
Apparently enraged that his princess had left him, Phil Spector didn't make things easy. Forced Ronnie into divorce court again and again. The legal tactics and cross-country trips cost her time and money, while unexpectedly, Ronette's songs started generating money for Phil.
People that would approach me, like Springsteen or Southside, they would say, well, aren't you getting money for all these records? You're in movies and means... And I would say no. I never even thought that I was supposed to receive money.
By the early 1980s, it was more than a few films. Ronettes' music from the 60s was bringing in millions.
The Ronettes sound recordings over time became amongst the most valuable that were being licensed in movie, TV, and commercial use settings.
I was remarried and I was having children. And every time I'd go to a movie, I'd hear one of my songs. So that's really got me angry because that's my performance. That's what I do. Phil Spector and his companies were receiving tons of money from my voice.
Ronnie Spector finally took legal action in 1985. She turned to Chuck Rubin, a former rock and roll agent who'd started the Artists' Rights Enforcement Corporation, fighting to restore royalties and dignity to singers and songwriters.
Phil Spector is, I guess you can say, he's an icon. He's considered to be a great producer. And all that is true. But it's also true that he doesn't like to pay his artists.
Chuck Rubin got the law firm of Peltz and Walker on the case. After Alex Peltz filed suit in 1988, Phil Spector fought back on other fronts, refusing to grant Ronnie rights to perform her classic songs on television because he owned them.
This was how people knew Ronnie Spector. It was almost like she couldn't go out and say her name. Her identity in radio and TV and whatnot had just been taken from her.
But despite those tactics and countless delays, Ronnie pressed on.
Every 6 months that would go into a year with the litigation, I would get stronger and stronger because I wasn't gonna let one person like Phil Spector take my whole life away from me.
The suit finally went to trial in 1998, 10 years after it was filed. Attorney and author Stan Sucher was there as a reporter for legal journals.
I attended a good portion of the Ronettes' trial against Phil Spector, and it was really a good slice of rock and roll history in a lot of ways.
Phil Spector had two walls of defense. He claimed Ronnie gave up all rights to royalties in their divorce agreement, and he insisted the other two Ronettes didn't deserve any money because they only sang in concert, not on the records.
Phil Spector came across to me as a lucid witness, but I would say that he also was trying his best to win the judge's sympathy.
As a matter of fact, when I walked in, he was talking like this, and when I walked in, it was a pin stuck in him, and he slumped over, and that made my day. For the first time in Phil Spector's life, he couldn't say a word.
Testimony from both divorce attorneys indicated that Ronnie did not give up her rights to future unforeseen licensing royalties. Ronnie's attorneys refuted the claim that the other Ronettes didn't sing on their records.
What my lawyers did was they played 6 of my records for the judge. And once the judge heard, he could never say that.
It took 2 more years, but in June 2000, the judge ruled. Ronnie Spector and the Ronettes were entitled to 50% of all licensing income. They were awarded $2.6 million.
Oh, I felt vindicated as a woman. I felt vindicated as a performer, as a singer. I felt vindicated because I'd worked so hard to make those records, and to finally, after all those years and years of going through hell, I felt very vindicated just to know that I won.
Today, Ronnie Spector is still making her music and not on the oldies circuit. But after all these years, it still seems Phil Spector wants to sabotage her career. With interest, he owes $3 million now. But evidence of his most bitter tactic is revealed for the first time by Ronnie's music attorney, Bob Donnelly.
Phil Spector has kept Ronnie and the Ronettes out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Phil Spector sent a memo to the board members that he was urging them to withdraw her name, and P.S. they removed the Ronettes' name, and it's never been reinstated to this day.
Well, I know. I saw the letter myself, and I was devastated by that because I would think by now, why does he even care? So obviously it's to keep me down. I think it's a great thing to be in, but it doesn't bother me not to be because I do my shows. I still go out and do what I love best, which is performing. So of course I would love to be in the Hall of Fame, but if I'm not, so be it.
Still ahead, what links the murderous Menendez brothers to Ricky Martin and the rock and roll superstar who lost it all to drugs and betrayal by his best friends.
I had a heart attack, a stroke, I was in a coma for 5 days.